Hello, and welcome to Better HR in 10 Minutes, where we take a question for HR and in 10 minutes or less, we discuss it from the point of view of a trainer and from the point of view of a labor employment law attorney. I'm the trainer. I'm Rodney Klein. I have over 30 years experience working with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and as owner of my own training firm.
And I'm the employment lawyer. I'm Sarah Glasser. I am a shareholder at Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle & Townsend in Austin, Texas, where I head up the firm's employment law practice group. Now, Rodney and I are talking today, and we want to make sure that you keep in mind that the information that we share today is general information and not legal advice. There is no substitute for an attorney who you have hired to represent you.
Okay, well, today, Sarah, we're going to be talking about internal investigations. And the question for today is, what is the most important thing to remember when you're getting ready to start a witness interview? So what do you think?
I think I can think of like 5 different things that are the most important thing to remember when you're getting ready to start a witness interview. And I'll say the one that if you are an attorney watching this, from the attorney's perspective, or if you're in HR and you've got an attorney who joins you in the interview, it is very important that everyone who's sitting in that interview knows who the attorney represents, if anyone at all. Sometimes I conduct investigations where I don't represent anybody. I'm an outside administrative investigator, and I make sure that everybody knows that. And there should never be a question about who represents who. But that's kind of an aside. It's not going to make anybody a better HR representative or a better investigator. So we talked about this a little bit before, and I think I'm going to come back to that, which is back to our prior conversation, which is that pre-planning and thinking through the types of questions and the issues that are at issue in the investigation is one of the most important things when you're starting. And what I mean by that is here you sit at the beginning of your interview. Where do you want to be at the end of that? So I don't know. What do you think is the most important thing? Or are you aligned on that?
Oh, I'm definitely aligned on it. I think that this is a topic that we could probably talk on for over an hour. So I'm going to pick something that I don't think we talk about enough, and that is how to strategize in an internal investigation. Because I think it's important as an internal investigator, we get the truth, right? But I think it's just as important that we recognize it as truth because we're hearing different things from different people. So how do we do that? And I think a lot of times all we do is we ask a series of questions and we're not really sure how to prove or confirm that what we're hearing is the truth. Now, I think this comes down to the fact that most people are generally honest unless they are motivated not to be. And in a typical internal investigation, some of those motivations exist. Now, that doesn't mean people are going to be dishonest. It just means that those motivations are there. And what are those motivations? Nobody likes witness interviews. So the motivation is, one, what can I say that'll get me out of this interview as fast as possible? And two, what can I say that'll keep me out of trouble? That is the right answer. Now, the right answer might be the truth, but how do we know that? And I think a lot of times we have to think through the interview and ask questions in such a way as to make sure that the person doesn't know what the right answer is by the question that's being asked, whether that's in the chronology of how the questions are asked, whether that's in being able to ask questions that we can easily confirm, because if we confirm these, then that makes this answer more credible. And I think that these are all things that we should think through as investigators, but I find that we typically don't. What do you think?
I think that's so interesting. So you gave a couple of examples there, and the one that caught my ear was the let's set someone up to so that we're in a position to already know whether we find them to be a truthful person or not by the time we start asking the hard questions. In other words, let's start asking some questions we already know the answer to, so that we can put ourselves, set a baseline basically, so that once we start asking the questions that we don't know the answer to, or which are a little bit more difficult to confirm, we have this baseline that we can use as a marker of that we can sort of jump off of. Now, that's really interesting, and I think it's a great idea. It makes very good sense. And Another way that another kind of challenge with investigations is that at the end of the day, I find, sometimes you've done we'll be easy and call it 3 interviews, and nobody has lied to you, but they all have a different version of the truth because they're human and they perceive things differently. And so the saying, the truth is somewhere in the middle, is like, could not be more true, at least sometimes. So how do you work through that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of questions that we're asking, right? So I always try to stay away from opinion questions because that allows the individual to define things for you, and you don't want them defining terms for you. You want to define your own terms. So you want them to answer questions that are concrete, or as concrete as you can make them. And those things you should be able to confirm in some way. And sometimes I find that just keeping the witness a little disoriented, and if they
Mhm.
can't tell where I'm going, then
Yeah.
they don't, it's hard for them to think of a wrong answer. So in absence of being able to think of a wrong answer really quick, then they'll fall back on the truth a lot of times. And I think that that's important. But clearly always the number one skill involved is listening. You got to be able to listen to what the person says and respond to it and ask follow-up questions. And that really is the best way to make sure that you're hearing the truth and make sure that you recognize it as the truth.
Fantastic tips. Thank you for sharing those with us. With that, we probably better call it a day. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you found this helpful. If there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out.